Most people think switching to artificial sweeteners means they've solved their sugar problem. The evidence says you might have just changed the problem and your brain's reward system is keeping score in ways you can't feel. If you've been trying to eat better lately, there's a good chance you've already swapped out some sugar. Maybe you're using stevia in your coffee. Maybe you've picked up a keto-friendly snack bar at the servo. Maybe your protein powder is sweetened with monk fruit. Good on you for paying attention, but here's the thing. The world of sugar replacement is genuinely confusing, and some of what's been marketed as healthy, well, it's not quite the full story. So over these 2 episodes, we're going to walk through the whole landscape. Today, what sugar actually does to your body and the sweeteners that have the best case for being genuine alternatives. The next episode, the controversial ones, the artificial sweeteners, the sugar alcohols, and some emerging research that should make you think twice before you buy that erythritol sweetened treat. So let's get into it. Sugar is one of those things that's both completely natural and, in the quantities most of us consume it, genuinely harmful. The average Australian consumes around 14 to 17 teaspoonfuls of added sugar a day. The WHO recommends staying under 6. That's not a small gap. We know the downstream effects: obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, fatty liver, and inflammation. We talk about a lot of these on MedHeads. Sugar doesn't cause all of them directly, but it's a significant contributor to the metabolic dysfunction that underpins most of them. So the appeal of finding something that tastes sweet without the metabolic hit, that's completely rational. The question is whether the alternatives we've been handed actually deliver on that promise. Now let me give you a quick map of the territory before we dig in. Sugar replacements fall into 3 broad categories. The first are natural plant-derived sweeteners like stevia and monk fruit that come from plants, have essentially 0 calories and don't raise blood glucose. These are the ones with the cleanest safety profiles. The second are the novel sugars, allulose being the main one. These are technically sugars, but your body handles them completely differently to regular glucose or fructose. Very low calorie intake, minimal impact on blood sugar. The third are the artificial sweeteners and sugar alcohols: sucralose, aspartame, saccharin, erythritol, and xylitol. These have been around the longest, they're in the most products, and they also generate the most controversy right now. And we'll cover those in part 2. Today, let's talk about the ones that are actually holding up well under scrutiny. Stevia comes from a plant, Stevia rebaudiana. That's been used in South America for centuries. The sweet compounds called steviol glycosides are about 200 to 300 times sweeter than table sugar. Your body doesn't metabolize them, they pass through without raising blood glucose or contributing to calories. From a safety standpoint, stevia has one of the most solid records of any sweetener we have. Long-term animal studies haven't flagged any tumor risk. Human studies show it may have modest benefits for blood pressure and blood sugar control in people with hypertension or diabetes. The main complaint, and it's a legitimate one, is a bitter or slightly metallic aftertaste that some people find really noticeable. Here's the nuance though. What you're buying in the supermarket as stevia is rarely pure stevia. Most commercial products use a refined extract called ribaudioside A, which is almost always blended with a bulking agent, usually erythritol or allulose, to make it work at a 1-to-1 ratio with sugar. So when you're choosing a stevia product, check the label. What it's blended with matters, and more on erythritol specifically in part 2. Pure stevia or stevia blended with allulose, both good options. Stevia blended with erythritol, we need to have that conversation first. Monk fruit, luo han guo, is a small gourd native to southern China and Thailand, and it's been a staple of traditional Chinese medicine for a long time. The sweetness comes from compounds called mogrosides, which are about 150 to 250 times as sweet as sugar. Like stevia, it has 0 calories and no effect on blood glucose. Most people find it has a cleaner taste than stevia, less of that bitter edge. It is not as widely available yet, and it's more expensive to produce, which is why you'll often see it blended with erythritol or allulose in commercial products. The safety research on monk fruit is solid, but thinner than for stevia simply because it's newer to the Western market. The FDA classifies it as generally recognized as safe. No serious red flags have emerged. For now, it's in the probably one of your better options category, but look for single ingredient products or ones blended with allulose rather than erythritol. Now, when we come to talk about allulose, I find it genuinely interesting from a clinical standpoint. Allulose is technically a sugar. It occurs naturally in small amounts in figs, dates, and wheat, but your body treats it almost nothing like regular sugar. It's absorbed but not metabolized. It contributes about 0.4 calories per gram compared to 4 for regular sugar, and it has essentially no impact on blood glucose or insulin. What makes allulose stand out is how it behaves in cooking. Stevia and monk fruit are fine in coffee, but they cannot replicate what sugar does structurally in baking. The browning, the moisture, the texture. Allulose can. It caramelizes, it browns. For people who are cooking and baking without sugar, it's by far the most functional substitute. There's also some early but promising research suggesting that allulose may actually improve insulin sensitivity and even stimulate GLP-1, the same satiety hormone that weight loss drugs like semaglutide target. That's early stage evidence, but it's a compelling direction. The main downside of allulose is digestive discomfort at high doses, bloating, loose stools, similar to other sugar alcohols. Keep it under about 10 to 15 grams in a sitting and most people are fine. Before we finish part 1, I want to address something that comes up constantly in my practice. Patients tell me they've switched from sugar to honey, coconut sugar, or maple syrup because they're natural. I want to be direct with you. From a metabolic standpoint, these are all still sugars. Your body processes them in the same way. Yes, honey has some antioxidant and antimicrobial properties. Yes, coconut sugar has a slightly lower glycemic index than white sugar. But slightly lower is not the same as low. Yes, maple syrup has trace minerals, but none of these differences is clinically significant when the quantities most people use them in are considered. If you're using a teaspoonful of raw honey in your herbal tea once a day, that's fine. The problem is when people replace a tablespoon of white sugar with a tablespoon of coconut sugar and tell themselves they've made a healthy choice. The calorie and glucose load is virtually identical. These aren't sugar alternatives, they're different forms of sugar. So where does that leave us? If you're looking to reduce sugar without compromising your metabolic health, stevia and monk fruit, particularly in pure or allulose blended forms, are your most evidence-based backed options. Allulose is genuinely exciting as a functional cooking substitute with some real metabolic upsides. Honey, coconut sugar, or maple syrup, use them as you would sugar, in small amounts occasionally, not as a healthy strategy. Now here's what I haven't told you yet. Almost every stevia product, every monk fruit product, every keto-friendly snack bar you've picked up thinking you were making a smart choice, there's something else in there. Something that's been quietly added to virtually every healthy sweetener on the market. And in the last 2 years, research published in some of the world's most respected medical journals has raised a serious question about what it's doing to your heart. We're talking about a specific ingredient, one that's in your pantry right now if you've been eating sugar-free. And the mechanism researchers have identified, platelet activation, clotting risk, is not a small theoretical concern. In part 2, we name it. We go through the science and I give you my clinical position on what you should actually do about it. I'm Dr. Fergal Armstrong. This is MedHeads. Don't miss the next one.